The Grand Council chamber hung in the darkness between galaxies like a jewel made of light and metal. It was older than most civilizations. Inside its massive halls, 17 different alien species sat in judgment over the younger races of the galaxy. Today, they were judging humanity. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood alone on a circular platform that floated over empty space. Below him was nothing but processed vacuum that would kill him instantly if he fell. The council designed it this way on purpose. They wanted everyone who stood here to feel small and afraid. Marcus did not look afraid. Above him, the council members sat on their high thrones. Each one looked stranger than the last. There were beings made of crystal, creatures with too many limbs, and things that humans had no words to describe. At the center sat High Arbiter Velmoth, a creature whose body was made entirely of living crystal that bent light into shapes and colors. Velmoth spoke, and translators turned the words into something humans could understand. Ambassador Webb, your species has been summoned to answer for crimes. You deployed kinetic weapons in the Tertius sector without authorization. 3 of our monitoring stations were destroyed. 47 observers are dead. You will explain this action now. Marcus looked up at the crystalline being. His face showed nothing. I declined to explain. The chamber exploded with noise. 17 different species all shouted at once in 17 different languages. The translators struggled to keep up. In 4,000 years of council history, no one had ever refused to answer their questions. No one had ever dared. Velmoth's crystal body flashed with bright, angry light. You refuse? You cannot refuse this council. I can, Marcus said calmly. And I do. Because you already know why we destroyed your stations. You were there. You watched it happen. Some of you even voted to allow it. The shouting stopped. The chamber fell into a silence that felt heavy and dangerous. Marcus continued speaking. 2 months ago, you authorized the Kryn sovereignty to conduct what you called cultural compliance enforcement on our colony, the human colony of New Anchorage. You said it was an internal matter, not your concern. The Kryn sent their warships. They told our colonists to leave because they claimed the land belonged to them, some old territorial claim that nobody else in the galaxy recognizes. A large reptilian council member named Thane started to speak. The colony was built in disputed space, and according to law, Marcus interrupted him. His voice grew louder. Our colonists refused to leave, so the Kryn opened fire on civilian buildings. They targeted homes, schools, medical centers. They killed 4,216 humans, men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except build homes on a planet you said was open for colonization. He paused. In that moment of silence, something changed in the way Marcus stood. Something dangerous entered his eyes. Among the dead was a 9-year-old girl named Emma Reeves. She was in her classroom studying xenobiology when the Kryn orbital strike hit her school. The building collapsed on her and 32 other children. The Kryn recorded everything. They sent the footage to every human world as a warning. They wanted us to know what happens when we disobey. Marcus stared directly at Velmoth. You want to know why Earth destroyed your monitoring stations? Because your observers watched my people die. They recorded it for your archives. They did absolutely nothing to stop it. And when we filed a formal grievance, when we demanded justice, you dismissed our case. You said the Kryn had the right to enforce their territorial claims. You offered us your condolences and closed the matter. Case finished. Velmoth's light flickered. The law was followed correctly. The proper procedures. Your law, Marcus said quietly. Not ours. Not anymore. Several council members noticed their security screens starting to flicker. The chamber's artificial gravity shifted slightly, making everyone feel uneasy. Ambassador Webb? Velmoth's voice carried a new tone now, something that almost sounded like worry. Are you threatening this council? Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the kind of smile that made every alien in the chamber feel suddenly afraid. No, High Arbiter. I am not here to threaten you. Threats are for people who still have a choice. I am here to serve you official notice. You killed Emma Reeves. You killed all of them when you allowed it to happen and did nothing. Earth has deliberated on this matter. Earth has voted. And Earth has decided your sentence. Thane rose from his throne, his massive form trembling with rage. You cannot sentence this council. We are the law of this galaxy. Marcus tilted his head slightly. You were the law. Past tense. That was when the Council's detection system started screaming warnings. 93 ships had just appeared out of faster-than-light travel. They surrounded the Council chamber in a perfect geometric pattern. Human warships. Ships that should not exist. 3 years ago, Earth had barely mastered basic FTL travel. The Council had been monitoring their progress carefully, amused by how primitive the humans were. These ships were nothing like the clumsy vessels humanity had shown the Council before. These were massive warships that radiated power. Signatures stronger than anything the Council's own fleets possessed, and every single ship had weapons pointed at the Council. Chamber, alarms blared throughout the station. Council security forces scrambled to their posts. Defensive shields activated with a hum that vibrated through the floor. But none of it seemed to bother Marcus, who still stood calmly on his platform, even as weapons locked onto him. How? Velmoth whispered. How did your species build such a fleet? We were monitoring your every advancement. Your technology was decades away from this. Marcus's smile grew wider. You thought you were monitoring us. You were not. You were watching a performance, a show we put on specifically for you. He clasped his hands behind his back again, looking relaxed, despite the dozens of weapons aimed at him. You shared your technology with us because you thought we were too primitive to truly understand it. You thought we would take centuries to learn what you already knew. You were wrong. Dead wrong. On the view screens around the chamber, the Council members could see the human fleet taking up positions with mathematical precision. Each ship moved to an exact coordinate, creating a web of vessels that surrounded not just the chamber but also the space around it for thousands of kilometers in every direction. You have 1 hour, Marcus announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 1 hour to evacuate all Council stations, all embassies, all administrative centers across the galaxy. After that, they cease to exist. This is madness, Thane roared. Our defenses are impregnable. Your primitive weapons cannot harm this chamber. Marcus looked at his watch. 59 minutes now. On the human flagship Valiant, Fleet Admiral Robert Kimura sat in his command chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship in the fleet. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands that never shook, even now. All ships report ready, Admiral, his second-in-command reported. Kimura nodded slowly. Begin Phase 1. Show them what happens when you murder our children. The nearest human ship powered up its main weapon. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the Council chamber. But the ship did not fire at the chamber itself. 3 star systems away, a Council monitoring station sat in orbit around a dead planet. It was one of the stations that had watched New Anchorage burn. Observers there were still analyzing the data from the human colony's destruction. The weapon fired. It made no sound in the vacuum of space. There was no visible beam, no missile trail, no explosion. The monitoring station simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next moment, the space where it had been was empty. No debris field. No energy signature. No trace that anything had ever been there at all. It was as if the station had been erased from reality itself. Back in the Council chamber, alarms shrieked as sensors reported the impossible readings. Velmoth's crystalline form pulsed with confused, frightened light. What weapon is this? What have you done? Marcus checked his watch again. 58 minutes. That is the kind of weapon you get when you take your technology, combine it with human innovation, and add in 4,000 years of accumulated rage. I suggest you start evacuating. Outside the chamber, the human fleet waited in perfect formation, ready to erase the Council's 4,000-year reign from existence, one station at a time. The Council chamber went into full lockdown mode. Massive blast doors sealed every entrance. Shield generators hummed to maximum power, creating layers of protection that could withstand the explosion of a small star. Weapon systems hidden in the walls emerged and targeted the lone human standing on the platform. Marcus Webb did not move. He stood perfectly still as targeting lasers painted red dots across his chest. His calm expression never changed. High Arbiter Velmoth's crystalline body blazed with light. How did you build such a fleet? We monitored every human shipyard. We tracked every resource allocation. We had observers on your homeworld and colonies. There is no way you could have constructed 93 warships without our knowledge. Marcus smiled again, that same unsettling smile. You were not monitoring us, High Arbiter. You were watching a carefully constructed illusion. While your observers watched our public shipyard struggle to build simple cargo vessels, our real work was happening somewhere you never thought to look. On Earth, 6 months earlier, Dr. James Okonkwo walked through a facility that did not officially exist. It was built into the dark side of one of Saturn's moons, hidden from any telescope or sensor sweep. The massive underground complex stretched for kilometers, filled with construction bays where the human warships were being assembled. Dr. Okonkwo was a tall man with dark skin and intelligent eyes that never stopped analyzing everything around him. He was Earth's head of experimental warfare, though no council database listed his name or position. They think we are stupid, he said to his chief engineer as they watched robots assemble a ship's weapons system. The council believes that because we only recently achieved FTL travel, we must be primitive in all ways. They do not understand that being new to space travel does not mean being new to war. Humans have been perfecting the art of killing each other for thousands of years. We are very, very good at it. The engineer nodded. They shared their technology with us because they thought we could not possibly understand it for decades. They were teaching children, they thought. They did not realize they were giving weapons to wolves. Dr. Okonkwo picked up a device no larger than his palm. It glowed with soft blue light. This is a temporal disruptor. The council found the basic technology in ancient ruins and could never get it to work properly. We figured it out in 6 months. Do you know why? Because we were desperate. Because they killed our children. Desperation makes humans dangerous. He activated the device. A test target at the end of the room simply vanished, erased from time itself. When we are done, Dr. Okonkwo said quietly, the council will wish they had never heard of humanity. Back in the present, Marcus continued his explanation to the shocked council members. Every time you sent us an advisor, every time you shared your technology to help poor primitive humanity, we learned. We studied. We took apart everything you gave us and put it back together in ways you never imagined. You thought you were mentoring a younger species. You were actually arming your executioners. More alarm shrieked through the council chamber. Another monitoring station had vanished from sensors. Then another. The erasure was spreading across the galaxy, targeting every council facility that had played any role in the New Anchorage massacre. Stop this immediately, Councilor Thane demanded. We can negotiate. We can offer reparations. Marcus shook his head. Emma Reeves cannot be brought back to life. Her parents will never see her graduate, never see her become the doctor she dreamed of being. She is gone forever, but you, High Arbiter, you and your council can also be gone forever. That seems like a fair trade. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Each ship knew exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. It was a dance of destruction choreographed with inhuman precision. On the flagship Valiant, Fleet Admiral Robert Kimura watched holographic displays show the tactical situation. He was a veteran of Earth's many wars before humanity reached the stars. He had learned his trade fighting other humans. Now he commanded the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled. Admiral, the Kryn Sovereignty is launching their battle fleet, his tactical officer reported. They are moving to engage us. Kimura leaned back in his chair. His face showed no emotion. Let them come. They killed Emma Reeves. They burned New Anchorage. I want them to get close enough to see our ships clearly before we erase them. The Kryn were a proud warrior species. They had dominated their region of space for centuries through military might. Their warships were massive things covered in weapons, designed to inspire fear. 47 Kryn battleships moved toward the human fleet, their commanders confident that their superior numbers and firepower would overwhelm the primitive humans. They were wrong. The Kryn fleet opened fire when they reached weapons range. Missiles, particle beams, and plasma weapons filled the space between the two fleets. Enough firepower to destroy a planet slammed into the human ships. The human shields absorbed everything without even flickering. Admiral Kimura watched the display calmly. Return fire! Use the erasure protocol. The human weapons activated. They did not shoot missiles or beams. Instead, they fired something that bent reality itself. The Kryn ships began to change, but they did not explode or burn. Instead, they started moving backward through time. The crews aboard watched in horror as their ships reversed course, traveling backward along their own trajectories. Their missiles returned to their launch tubes, their weapons powered down, and then the ships themselves began to fade, becoming transparent like ghosts. Within 30 seconds, the entire Kryn fleet had vanished completely. They did not leave behind debris or energy signatures. They had been erased from existence, removed from the timeline itself. It was as if they had never been there at all. In the council chamber, the remaining members watched the recordings in absolute horror. This was not warfare as they understood it. This was something far worse. The humans were not destroying their enemies. They were removing them from reality itself. This is genocide, Thane screamed, his reptilian face pale with fear. This is extinction-level warfare. It is forbidden by every law in the galaxy. Marcus turned to look at him. Genocide is what we watched happen at New Anchorage. This is justice. There is a difference. Velmoth tried one more time. Please, Ambassador Webb. We can hold trials. We can punish the Kryn leadership. We can offer any reparations you demand. Just stop this. No, Marcus said simply. Emma Reeves cannot be unkilled, but you can be unmade. That is fair. Across the galaxy, more council infrastructure disappeared. Trade hubs that had connected thousands of worlds for centuries simply ceased to exist. Military bases vanished mid-operation, their personnel erased along with them. Research stations that had made groundbreaking discoveries blinked out of reality. But the human fleet was careful. They only targeted government and military installations. Civilian populations were left untouched. The message was clear. Earth could erase anything it wanted, anyone it wanted. But it chose to show restraint, for now. On Earth, President Isabella Romano watched the operation from a secure command center deep below the surface. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had been a teacher before entering politics. She had taught children Emma's age. Every station we erase is a monument to that little girl, she said to her advisors. Let the galaxy remember her name. Let them remember what happens when you hurt a human child. Her military advisor stepped forward. Madam President, Admiral Kimura is requesting authorization for Phase 2. President Romano nodded slowly. Authorized. Target their memory. Back in space, the human ships began broadcasting a new kind of signal. It spread through quantum communication networks, infiltrating every database connected to Council systems. The signal carried a virus, one designed by Earth's best programmers specifically for this moment. The virus did not destroy data. It was far more elegant than that. It selectively deleted information, removing specific files while leaving others intact. It targeted anything related to the Council's history, their laws, their cultural archives, their very records of existence across thousands of worlds. Libraries found their Council history sections suddenly empty. Museums discovered their displays of Council artifacts showing blank spaces. Historical databases returned error messages when asked about Council policies or decisions. The Council was not just being erased from the present. They were being erased from the past. In time, it would be as if they had never existed at all. Velmoth's crystalline body dimmed, a sign of despair among his species. You are destroying 4,000 years of civilization, our history, our culture, our very identity. Marcus looked up at the fading alien. And in another 4,000 years, maybe someone will remember you existed. Maybe they will even remember Emma Reeves too. But I doubt it. History tends to forget the names of children. Earth will make sure yours are forgotten too. Around the council chamber, the human fleet tightened its formation. Phase 3 was about to begin. News of Earth's attack spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Quantum communication networks carried the story to every civilized world. Humanity, the newest species to achieve space travel, was destroying the council that had ruled the galaxy for 4,000 years. Some species watched in horror. Others watched in secret hope. 3 weeks before the attack on the council chamber, Earth's intelligence division had made a discovery that changed everything. They were not looking for it. They stumbled upon it while investigating council databases through their infiltration networks. The discovery was simple but devastating. Earth was not the first species to suffer under council rule. They were just the first to successfully fight back. Ambassador Yuri Volkov sat in a secret meeting room on a space station in neutral territory. He was a broad-shouldered man with a scarred face and eyes that had seen too many battlefields. Across from him sat 3 aliens he had never met before, members of a species called the Talon. The Talon looked almost human, but with silver skin and large dark eyes. They had been hiding in the shadows of the galaxy for 30 years, ever since the Council destroyed their homeworld. "Thank you for meeting with us," the lead Talon said. Her name was Mora, and her voice carried the weight of survivors' grief. "We heard that Earth lost a colony. We are sorry. We know that pain." Yuri leaned forward. "Tell me what happened to your people." Mora's face tightened with old anger. 30 years ago, the Talon species was growing. We were building new colonies, expanding our reach. The Council said we were expanding too quickly, that we needed to slow down and accept their guidance. We refused. We said we would govern ourselves, so they made an example of us. She pulled up a holographic display showing a beautiful blue planet. This was Talon Prime, our homeworld. The Council called it restructuring. They said they needed to reorganize our government for the greater good. They sent their fleets. They bombarded our world from orbit until nothing remained but ash and radioactive glass. 8 billion Talon died in 3 days. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, hiding wherever we could. Yuri felt his hands clench into fists under the table. "How many other species have they done this to?" Another Talon spoke up, an older male named Fen. "Dozens, maybe hundreds. The Council has been doing this for millennia. Any species that grows too powerful, that questions their authority, that refuses to follow their laws gets restructured. Sometimes it is economic sanctions that destroy their economy. Sometimes it is political manipulation. And sometimes, when a species is particularly stubborn, it is orbital bombardment." "Why did no one fight back?" Yuri asked. Mora smiled sadly. "Because the Council is too powerful. Because they control the technology, the trade routes, the military alliances. Because any species that tried to resist alone got crushed. But Earth is different. You have something we never had." "What is that?" "Rage," Mora said simply. "And the weapons to back it up." That meeting led to others. Earth discovered that there was an entire underground network of species who hated the Council. Species who had lost worlds, colonies, or loved ones to Council politics. They had been waiting for someone, anyone, to stand up to the Council and survive long enough to make a difference. Earth gave them that chance. Back in the present, as the Council chamber shook under the pressure of human weapons, Ambassador Marcus Webb received a coded signal on his personal device. He glanced at it and smiled. High Arbiter Velmoth noticed. "What amuses you, Ambassador? Your fleet is committing atrocities across the galaxy." "No," Marcus said. "My fleet is delivering justice, and they are about to have help." On the view screens, new ships began appearing near the human fleet. They were not Council vessels. The first wave was Talon ships, small and fast, built from stolen and salvaged technology. Then came the Norin, a species of 4-armed engineers who had been suppressed by the Council for being too innovative. Then the Hesperides, beautiful crystalline beings who had been enslaved by Council member species for centuries. Within an hour, the human fleet had doubled in size. Species from across the galaxy emerged from hiding, their ships joining Earth's formation. Each one carried weapons that humanity had secretly shared with them over the past 2 weeks. Temporal disruptors, reality erasers, weapons that the Council had kept to themselves for centuries, now in the hands of every oppressed species in the galaxy. "What have you done?" Velmoth whispered in horror. Marcus smiled. "We gave them hope and weapons. If we are going to tear down the Council, we are going to make sure everyone has the tools to ensure it never comes back." On Earth, President Isabella Romano addressed the galaxy through every communication channel humanity could access. Her image appeared on billions of screens across thousands of worlds. "People of the galaxy," she began, "for 4,000 years you have lived under Council rule. They told you it was for your own good. They told you their laws brought order and peace. But we have discovered the truth. The Council's peace was built on the graves of species who dared to be free. Their order was maintained through fear and violence." She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity does not seek to replace the Council. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want something simpler and far more radical. We want freedom. The freedom to live our lives, raise our children, and reach for the stars without fear that some distant government will decide we are inconvenient and erase us. We are sharing our weapons not to start a war, but to ensure that no species will ever again bow to tyrants. The speech changed everything. Across the galaxy, species began to fracture. Council member races found themselves divided. Some supported the Council out of fear or tradition. Others remained neutral, unsure which side would win. But many, more than anyone expected, openly declared support for Earth's rebellion. The carefully maintained order that the Council had spent 4 millennia building began to crack and crumble. Inside the Council chamber, the member species began arguing among themselves. Councillor Thane roared at Velmoth. "This is your fault! You allowed the Kryn to destroy a human colony. You refused to see that humans were different from other species." A floating energy being named Core chimed in. "We should negotiate. Offer them seats on the Council. Give them what they want?" "No!" shouted another councillor. "If we bow to humans, every species will think they can challenge us. We must destroy Earth as an example." The arguing grew louder and more desperate. The Council that had ruled with absolute authority for 4,000 years was tearing itself apart. Then the unthinkable happened. 3 Council species recalled their military fleets. They sent messages to their homeworlds ordering their representatives to withdraw from the Council. They were abandoning the alliance that had defined galactic politics since before humans discovered fire. Velmoth watched his civilization collapse in real time. The crystal being dimmed further, barely glowing now. "You destroyed us without firing a shot at us." Marcus shook his head. "No, High Arbiter. You destroyed yourselves. You built your order on oppression and called it peace. You murdered children and called it law. We just showed the galaxy what you really were. They made their own choice. That was when the Council's most loyal members made their final desperate move. Deep in the station's core, ancient weapons activated. Weapons that the Council had kept hidden for emergencies. Weapons so terrible that even mentioning them was forbidden. A singularity generator. A device that could create a controlled black hole. On the Valiant, Admiral Kimura's sensors screamed warnings. "Admiral, they are charging a singularity weapon. If they activate it, it will collapse this entire region of space into a black hole." Kimura's face went pale. "How long until it fires?" 3 minutes. Kimura understood immediately what was happening. The Council's hardline members had decided that if they could not win, nobody would. They were going to destroy the Council chamber and everyone in it, including themselves. It was a final act of spite. Thousands of Council civilians were still on the station, trying to evacuate. They would all die, and so would Marcus Webb. Kimura opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is the Admiral. The Council is activating a singularity weapon. They are going to create a black hole. We need to make a choice." He paused, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. "We can retreat. We can save our fleet and our lives. Or we can stay and try to protect the civilians still on that station." Emma Reeves wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help people, even alien people. "I think she would want us to save them, even if they do not deserve it." The channel was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the human ship captains responded. "Valiant, this is the defiance. We stay. This is the retribution. We stay. This is the vindication. We stay." Every single human ship chose to remain, to sacrifice themselves, if necessary, to protect the civilians they had been fighting against moments before. Admiral Kimura nodded, feeling proud and heartbroken at the same time. "All ships, defensive formation. Put yourselves between that weapon and the evacuation pods. Use everything we have to contain that singularity." For Emma, the singularity weapon fired. Reality itself screamed as space-time began to collapse inward. The human ships positioned themselves in the path of the forming black hole, their shields at maximum power, their hulls already beginning to distort and tear under the gravitational pressure. But they held the line. They held it long enough for the last evacuation pods to launch from the Council chamber, carrying thousands of civilians to safety. Marcus Webb stood on his platform, watching through the cracking viewport as human ships were torn apart protecting people who had done nothing to save New Anchorage. He smiled. "Emma would have wanted this," he whispered. The singularity weapon tore through space like a wound in reality itself. At its center, a point of absolute darkness grew larger with each passing second. Around it, the fabric of space-time twisted and warped, pulling everything toward destruction. The human fleet formed a wall of ships between the growing black hole and the fleeing evacuation pods. Their shields blazed with energy as they fought against gravity itself. Warning alarms screamed on every bridge. Structural beams groaned under impossible stress. Viewports cracked. Hull plating began to peel away like paper in a fire. On the flagship Valiant, Fleet Admiral Robert Kimura gripped his command chair as the ship shook violently. Holographic displays flickered and died. Emergency lighting painted everything in red. His crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to keep the shields operational just a few more seconds, just long enough. "Admiral, we have lost the Retribution," his tactical officer shouted over the noise. "The Defiance is breaking apart. Hull integrity at 15% and falling." Kimura watched on his remaining displays as ship after ship was pulled into the singularity. Good ships, good crews, people who had families waiting for them on Earth, all dying to save aliens who had stood by while New Anchorage burned. "Hold the line," Kimura ordered. "Every second we buy them is another pod that escapes." In the Council chamber, the blast doors had sealed automatically when the singularity weapon activated. Marcus Webb was trapped inside along with High Arbiter Velmoth and the few council members who had not evacuated in time. The platform he stood on tilted dangerously as the station's artificial gravity failed and restarted in random patterns. Through the cracking viewport, Marcus could see human ships dying. The Vindication exploded in a flash of light as its reactor overloaded. The Relentless was stretched like elastic, its hull elongating impossibly before snapping in half. Escape. Pods launched from dying ships, their crews choosing the uncertain safety of space over the certain death of the singularity. Marcus pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was a photograph, old-fashioned and laminated. The picture showed a little girl with brown hair and a gap-toothed smile, holding up a drawing she had made of the solar system. Emma Reeves, at age 9, 3 weeks before the Kryn killed her. "We remembered you," Marcus whispered to the photograph. "The whole galaxy will remember you now." Velmoth's crystalline body had gone almost completely dark. The High Arbiter clung to the remains of the central throne as the chamber shook. "Why?" the alien asked, voice barely audible over the chaos. "Why are your ships sacrificing themselves for us? We destroyed your colony. We refused you justice. Why save us?" Marcus looked up at the dying alien. "Because Emma was studying to be a doctor. She wanted to help people. All people. Even aliens. Even you. We honor her memory by being what she would have wanted us to be." Outside, the human ships were being systematically destroyed. But their sacrifice was working. The evacuation pods had cleared the danger zone. Thousands of Council civilians were safe, fleeing to nearby Allied vessels that had come to rescue them. Admiral Kimura watched his fleet die ship by ship. The Valiant shuddered as another gravity wave hit it. Consoles exploded. The deck plating buckled. "All remaining ships, maximum power to forward shields. Give everything we have." The singularity weapon had a critical flaw, one that the Council's scientists had known about but considered acceptable. The device needed a massive amount of energy to sustain the artificial black hole. When that energy ran out, the singularity would collapse inward on itself rather than growing. The weapon station was designed to be destroyed in the process, taking itself and its target with it. But the human ships had changed the equation. By interposing themselves between the weapon and the Council chamber, they had given their shields energy to feed the black hole. The singularity was consuming human ships instead of the station, and human reactors built with combined Earth. And Council technology had more power than the Council had anticipated. The singularity was growing too large, too fast. It was going to consume the weapon station, the human fleet, and the council chamber all at once. On Earth, President Isabella Romano watched the live feed from the council chamber with tears streaming down her face. Half of humanity's fleet, gone. Thousands of people she had sent to their deaths. "Pull them back," she ordered. "Order the fleet to retreat. They have done enough." Her military advisor shook his head sadly. "We are too far away, Madam President. By the time our orders reach them through FTL communication, it will be too late. Admiral Kimura is making his own decisions now." Romano closed her eyes. "Then may he choose wisely." Back at the battle, Admiral Kimura made his choice. "All ships, concentrate fire on the weapon station. Target the singularity generator itself. If we can overload it, cause it to fail, the black hole will collapse." "Sir, firing on it might make the singularity worse," his tactical officer protested. "Or it might save what remains of this fleet," Kimura countered. "Fire everything. Now!" The surviving human ships turned their weapons on the Council weapon station. Temporal disruptors, reality erasers, conventional missiles, everything they had left. The combined firepower of 20 warships struck the station simultaneously. The singularity generator overloaded. The carefully controlled exotic matter containment fields failed. The black hole, suddenly uncontrolled, began to fluctuate wildly. For a terrifying moment, it looked like the singularity would explode outward, growing large enough to consume everything within a light year. Then it collapsed. The black hole folded in on itself, taking the weapon station with it. The station and the device vanished into a point of infinite density that then simply winked out of existence, leaving behind only the faint radiation that marked where it had been. The shaking stopped. The alarms fell silent. In the sudden quiet, survivors took stock of the damage. Of the 93 human warships that had surrounded the council chamber, only 19 remained. 74 ships lost. More than 40,000 human lives ended in a few terrible minutes. The largest military loss in human history since World War II, but every single council civilian had escaped. Not one of the evacuation pods had been lost. Admiral Kimura slumped in his command chair, suddenly feeling every one of his 60 years. Around him, his crew sat in stunned silence. They were alive. Against all probability, they were alive. "Get me a channel to the council chamber," Kimura said quietly. Inside the chamber, communications were slowly being restored. When Velmoth's screen flickered to life, showing the human admiral's face, the High Arbiter could barely form words. "You saved us," Velmoth said in disbelief. "You lost most of your fleet to save us." Kimura's face showed no emotion. "We did what was right. That is what humanity does, even when it costs us everything." Velmoth's crystal body flickered with light, a sign of deep shame among his species. "We do not deserve this mercy." "No," Marcus Webb said, having made his way to a functioning communication panel. "You do not. But Emma Reeves deserved to live, and you took that from her. The least we can do is not become like you. The least we can do is show the galaxy that there is a better way." The remaining human ships took up positions around the damaged council chamber, but their weapons were no longer active. The fighting was over. What came next would be decided with words, not weapons. On screens across the galaxy, billions watched the aftermath of the battle. They saw the human ships, broken and bleeding, still protecting the council they had been fighting moments before. They saw Ambassador Marcus Webb standing in the ruined chamber, still alive despite everything. They saw Admiral Kimura, exhausted but unbowed, and they understood. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to teach a lesson. The lesson was simple. There are lines that should never be crossed. There are prices that must be paid when those lines are violated. And there are principles worth dying for, even when defending those who do not deserve defense. The message spread faster than any weapon could have traveled. From the oldest civilizations to the newest colonies, from the Council's strongest supporters to their bitterest enemies, everyone learned the same truth. Humanity was not just another species competing for power in the galaxy. They were something new, something dangerous, something that remembered its children and would burn down civilization itself to avenge them. But they were also something better, something that would sacrifice itself to save even its enemies. The galaxy would never be the same. High Arbiter Velmoth looked at Marcus Webb through failing eyes. The High Arbiter's crystal body was fracturing, splitting along fault lines as the stress of the battle and the horror of what had happened took their toll. "What happens now?" Velmoth asked. Marcus looked at the photograph of Emma one more time, then put it carefully back in his pocket. "Now, High Arbiter, you listen to our terms, and you agree to them. Because the alternative is that we finish what we started. The next time, we will not stop to save you." Velmoth dimmed in submission. "We will listen." The war was over. The negotiation was about to begin, and humanity had already won. The battle ended not with explosions, but with silence. The Council chamber floated damaged, but intact, surrounded by the remains of the human fleet and the Allied ships that had joined their cause. Debris drifted through space, the broken pieces of vessels from both sides of a conflict that had lasted only hours, but changed millennia of history. No one fired. Everyone waited. High Arbiter Velmoth's crystalline form had lost most of its light. Among his species, this was the equivalent of complete defeat and shame. The once mighty leader of the galaxy's ruling body now looked like a piece of cloudy glass, barely able to hold its shape. "What are your terms, Ambassador Webb?" Velmoth asked. The question was broadcast across every communication channel in known space. Billions of beings listened, waiting to hear what price humanity would demand for the blood of their children. Marcus Webb stood on the platform that had been designed to make him feel small. He did not feel small. Behind him, medical teams had arrived to treat his injuries from the battle. He waved them away. This moment was too important. This had to be finished. "Dissolution," Marcus said. The word fell like a hammer. "The Galactic Council ends today, immediately. No transition period. No gradual reform. This government, this body, this system that has ruled through fear and called it order for 4,000 years, stops existing right now." The remaining council members erupted in protest, but Velmoth silenced them with a gesture. "If we dissolve, there will be chaos. There will be wars between species. Trade will collapse. The galaxy will descend into anarchy." Marcus shook his head. "No, the galaxy will learn to govern itself. Every species will have full independence. No supreme authority, no greater good that means the death of children. Each world, each civilization will make its own choices and live with the consequences." "That is madness," Councillor Thane protested. "Species need guidance. Without the Council, they will destroy themselves." "Then that is their choice to make," Marcus replied calmly. "Freedom means the freedom to fail. Freedom means the freedom to make mistakes. But it also means the freedom to succeed beyond what anyone thought possible. Humanity will not replace your tyranny with our own. We will simply remove the chains and let every species find their own path." Admiral Kimura's face appeared on the chamber's main screen. Despite his exhaustion, his voice was strong. "Earth demands the following: full independence for all species. War crimes trials for the Kryn leadership who ordered the destruction of New Anchorage. And a memorial." "What kind of memorial?" Velmoth asked. "A database," Kimura explained. "A complete record containing the name, face, and story of every victim of council politics throughout its 4,000-year history. Every being who died because of your laws, your order, your greater good. We will start with Emma Reeves, but her name will be joined by millions of others. The galaxy will remember all of them." On Earth, in a small house in the suburbs, Thomas Reeves sat with his wife watching the broadcast. They had not slept in 2 months. They had not truly lived since the day they received word that their daughter was dead. Now they watched as a fleet of warships demanded justice in her name. Thomas wept as Marcus spoke Emma's name to the entire galaxy. She loved the stars, he whispered. She wanted to see them all. She wanted to meet aliens and learn about their worlds. She was so excited about living on New Anchorage. His wife held his hand. Neither of them spoke. There were no words for this moment, when your grief becomes the spark that burns down civilizations. In the council chamber, negotiations began in earnest. They were broadcast live across every world. Humanity made no secret demands, held no closed meetings. Everything was public. Everyone could watch as the new order was forged. President Isabella Romano addressed the galaxy directly, her image appearing on countless screens. "Humanity does not seek an empire," she said firmly. "We do not want to rule you. We do not want your resources or your territory. We want only what we have always wanted, to be left alone, to live our lives, to raise our children, to reach for the stars in peace." She paused, her expression hardening. "But harm one human, and you will learn what we can do. Harm a human child, and you will learn what we will do. We have shown you our weapons. We have shown you our resolve. We have also shown you our mercy. Choose wisely which lesson you remember." The Treaty of New Anchorage was drafted over the next 3 days. It was named for the colony where everything began, where Emma Reeves died. The treaty's terms were simple but revolutionary. The Galactic Council would dissolve immediately. All member species would become fully independent. A new framework would replace the Council's authority, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than mandatory compliance. No species could claim dominion over another. No authority could override a civilization's right to self-determination. Earth would guarantee the treaty's enforcement. The surviving human fleet, along with the weapons technology humanity had developed, would serve as a deterrent against future tyranny. But Earth would not rule. They would only intervene if species attempted to recreate the Council's oppressive system. War crimes trials would be held for those responsible. For New Anchorage and every other atrocity committed under Council authority, the trials would be public. The guilty would face justice. The victims would finally be acknowledged, and the memorial, the database of names, would be created and maintained on New Anchorage itself. The colony would be rebuilt, not as a monument to destruction, but as a living testament to the cost of freedom. The council members had no choice but to agree. Their military was scattered or destroyed. Their member species were abandoning them. Their authority existed only as long as humanity allowed it to continue. They signed the treaty with whatever they used for hands, tentacles, or appendages. High Arbiter Velmoth was the last to sign. As he placed his mark on the document, his crystalline form fractured completely, breaking into 1,000 pieces that would never reform. Among his species, this was death by shame. The High Arbiter died having lost everything he had spent his life building. Marcus Webb felt no satisfaction watching the alien die. There was no joy in this victory, only exhaustion and the weight of 40,000 human lives lost to achieve it. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a garden on New Anchorage. The colony had been rebuilt better than before. Buildings rose from the ashes. Children played in the streets, human and alien children together. The galaxy was learning. The memorial was the centerpiece of the new colony. It was a massive structure made of black stone and light, inscribed with names in every language spoken by council victims. At the very top, in letters large enough to be seen from orbit, was the first name, Emma Reeves. Marcus placed a flower at the base of the memorial. It was a real Earth flower, a rose, grown in soil brought from humanity's homeworld. "We remembered you," he said softly. "The whole galaxy will remember you. They will remember what happens when they hurt a human child." A shadow fell across him. Marcus looked up to see Admiral Kimura standing nearby. The Admiral had aged years in the past 6 months. Command of Earth's defense fleet had not been kind to him. "Do you think it was worth it?" Kimura asked. 74 ships, 40,000 lives, all for one little girl? Marcus stood slowly. She was not just one little girl. She was our future. Every child is our future. And we taught the galaxy a lesson they will never forget. There are some lines you do not cross. There are some prices that must be paid. Yes, Admiral, it was worth it. 10 years passed. The galaxy was unrecognizable. The Treaty of New Anchorage had held. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to coexist. Trade flourished without council regulations strangling it. Scientific advancement accelerated without council restrictions limiting it. Wars still happened, but they were smaller, more contained. And when they threatened to spiral out of control, Earth's ships appeared, a silent reminder of what happened to tyrants. The human erasure fleet was maintained, but never deployed again. It sat in orbital shipyards around Saturn's moons, ready but unused. The threat alone was enough. Everyone in the galaxy knew that humanity could erase them from existence if they chose. Everyone also knew that humanity would only do so if pushed beyond all reasonable limits. New Anchorage had become something unexpected, a pilgrimage site. Aliens from across the galaxy came to visit Emma's memorial, to read the names of all the Council's victims, to understand the price of oppression. It became a place of learning, where the young of every species came to understand that authority without accountability leads only to suffering. An alien child stood in front of Emma's name, staring up at the holographic image that played on loop above the memorial. It showed Emma laughing, running through a field, looking through a telescope at the stars. The child was Talon, one of the species that had joined Earth's rebellion. "Mother," the child asked, "why is this one human girl so important? Why does she have the biggest name?" The mother, who had survived the destruction of Talon Prime 30 years ago, knelt beside her child. "Because, little one, she reminded humanity what they were, and she reminded us what we could be. She was just a child who wanted to see the stars. The Council took that from her, and Earth made sure no one would ever take that from anyone's child again." The child considered this. "So she saved us?" "In a way," the mother agreed. "Her death saved billions, not because she was special, but because humanity made her matter. They refused to let her be forgotten. They refused to let her death mean nothing." Above the memorial, Emma's holographic image smiled and pointed at the stars. Real stars now, visible through the transparent dome that covered the garden. Human and alien children played beneath them, safe and free because one little girl had died and humanity had refused to accept it. Marcus Webb, now retired from diplomatic service, visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the massacre. He was old now, his hair completely gray, his body bent with age. But he still made the journey. He still placed a flower at Emma's name. He still whispered the same words. "We remembered you." The galaxy was better now, not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still beings who sought power over others, but they moved carefully, always aware that humanity was watching, always aware that there were lines that should not be crossed. And on those rare occasions when someone forgot, when some warlord or dictator rose up and began oppressing the innocent, Earth's ships appeared. They did not destroy. They did not conquer. They simply reminded everyone of the lesson that Emma Reeves had taught the galaxy, that there are consequences for cruelty, that there are prices for oppression, that children matter. The memorial on New Anchorage grew larger each year as historians discovered more victims of the Council's 4,000-year reign. Millions of names joined Emma's, a testament to the cost of unchecked authority. But her name remained at the top, the largest and most prominent, because she was the one who changed everything. Emma Reeves, age 9, who wanted to be a doctor and see the stars. She never became a doctor. She never saw all the stars she dreamed of. But in her death, she saved more lives than any doctor could have. In her name, humanity had reached the stars and made them safe for everyone's children, and the galaxy would never forget her.